Our brain drives so many of our financial decisions, and in fact, I would argue of our day-to-day lives. But what if we could take control of it and really transform our investing behavior and the outcomes that we create for ourselves? In today's episode, I am really fortunate and excited to have Dr. Roddy Carter join us. He's going to show us how understanding the brain can lead to better financial choices and long-term wealth. But not only will it help with that, which is obviously very important for us, it will also help us serve, guide, and support our clients a lot better. So really looking forward to a fantastic episode this morning. Good morning. Warm welcome back. This morning, I already have goosebumps. We haven't even started. It's partly because of my guest, Dr. Roddy Carter, who's here. I had the privilege of seeing him live at Humans Under Management, and I was lucky enough for him to say, yes, he'll be here this morning. It's not often because he's from America, which means the timelines are really an issue when we try and speak to American people on the show because of the time difference. And I'm really lucky that he's here, that he said yes. And you're going to be so happy that you joined us today. And if you're watching the recording, just by the way, thank you so much for that as well. And really appreciate it. Remember to participate in the chat when you're here live, or please share your comments. If you're watching the recording, we will definitely respond to all of those. This morning, talking all about the brain. And it was a phenomenal experience for me to just sort of listen to the way that Dr. Roddy just explained it. There was five particular things that there is five particular things we're going to talk about this morning. That's really going to have you five light bulb moments, because that's what happened for me. That's what happened with my wife at Humans Under Management. And it was really a phenomenal experience. So hold on to your seats. It's going to be a good one. But of course, I mean, what is Dr. Roddy and I here? What are we going to do if we don't have other people with us? So we have Nikki back from the Financial Planning Institute, and talking about all the latest news that we need to know about. And also we have Kobus Kleyn today with Advisor Spa, talking about some essential investment principles. Also giving away some books today, once again. So we will do a live draw at the end of the show. And so stick around for that. And I'll give you the hashtag for that a little bit later. Then let me say a warm good morning. Kim unfortunately can't be here today because Kim is also traveling, but she'll be back in the next round. So first off, we do have Kobus. So Kobus is saying hi all the way from across the water. He's traveling at the moment. So we made a plan to have him on the show this morning. So Kobus, thank you very much. But Kobus is working from anywhere. Kuvendra, good morning. Nice to see you. Thank you very much for saying hi. Greg, good morning. Nice to see you as well. I don't know which Greg that is, but Greg, good morning. I have an idea. I think I know which Greg it is. Nico, good morning. Thank you very much for being here. Mr. Terence Tobin. Terence, you also had the privilege of hearing Dr. Carter at Humans Under Management. Fantastic. Bronwyn, so did you. Thank you very much for being here this morning. It was great to see you there. Arun, good morning. Nice to see you as well. Harry Nell, good morning. Prepping for the cold in Pretoria. Yes, I heard it was like 27 or something, and now suddenly it's going to be really, really cold there. Neil Phillips, good morning. I don't know if the wind is blowing the way it is here by me, but good luck. Liana, good morning. Nice to see you as well. Thanks for saying hi. We've got Johan Bloemeres. Hello, aan almal. Lekker. Goeiemôre. RR, double R squared. Not sure. Good morning. Elna Stein, goeiemôre. Lekker om jou te sien. Dit gaan goed. Jotika, good morning. Nice to see you as well. Tom, good morning. Thank you so much for saying hi. JP, good morning. Nice to see you as well. And Sherelle, good morning. Hope you are doing fantastically well, Sherelle. On that note, let's get the show started. Head on over to Nikki for the latest news.
Good morning, Francois, and good morning, everybody online from a cool and windy Johannesburg. So I think the cold front is upon us. My son said to me last night, Mom, but it's supposed to be spring. And I said, yeah, this happens. So if we look at the news and what's happening, as you would have seen, the Reserve Bank's monetary policy yesterday lowered interest rates by a pragmatic 25 basis points, despite the fact that the Fed did a jumbo cut of 50 basis points in the US the previous day. So, following the cut, SA's repo rate will now be 8%, and the prime rate is sitting at 11.5%. Now, the MPC said they expect inflation of 4.6% for 2024, and that was adjusted downwards from a 4.9%. And for 2025, it forecasts a 4% from a 4.4%. So good news all around. While the MPC members consider they considered a 50 basis point cut, but they also considered not cutting rates at all. So they ultimately reached consensus on a 25 basis point. So let's see what happens in the next meeting. Hopefully, this is the beginning of the relief that South African consumers need. Then I found a second article on IOL that was quite interesting. That said that the South African Revenue Services, so SARS, is increasing its scrutiny of crypto traders by using tax notices and clarifying exchange control regulations with them. And traders have been notified that they must comply immediately to avoid penalties. So there's real movement in this area, not just from the Financial Sector Conduct Authority that now says you have to be licensed to sell crypto, but also from SARS. So what is SARS doing? They have turned their attention towards crypto traders, and they are now receiving notices that their tax affairs are under review. And these notifications are based on information obtained from various crypto asset exchanges. And it's signaling a significant escalation in SARS's efforts to enforce tax compliance within the crypto sector. So, if they do not comply, it could be a criminal offense under the Tax Administration Act, and the tax authority will leave no stone unturned in its pursuit of revenue collection by any means necessary, and taxable profits from crypto trading are no exception. So they also seems to be leveraging artificial intelligence or AI technology when they are cracking down on this non-compliance. However, how they do it is uncertain, but it does align with a comment that SARS made earlier that says they are committing to enforcing mechanisms and making it a little bit more modern to address the complexities of digital asset trainings. So why is this important and why are they doing this? So according to the South African Reserve Bank, neither the Currency and Exchanges Manual for authorized dealers nor the Currency and Exchanges Manual in foreign exchange with limited authority does allow for cross-border or foreign exchange transfers for the explicit purpose of purchasing crypto assets. So for individuals, SARB does allow individuals to use their single discretionary allowance. So it's the 1 million rand per calendar year. If you are trading in crypto, that is the allowance that will be used in order to acquire these crypto assets. Then there are obviously also other implications like capital gains tax if you sell it, or income tax depending on how you use the crypto assets. And this provides a legal pathway for South Africans to invest in cryptocurrencies within the boundaries of existing financial regulations. However, the foreign direct investment dispensation does not permit investments in crypto assets specifically. And the position of juristic entities is very challenging because it's also not allowed there. So this increased scrutiny from SARS, coupled with the regulatory stance of the South African Reserve Bank, signals a new era of accountability and transparency for crypto traders in South Africa. So it's not that easy to traverse that landscape, and it really seems like our regulators are honing in to make sure that if you do crypto trading, you are going to do it right. So You have to remain compliant to avoid severe penalties and legal repercussions. You have to be duly licensed. You have to keep within the frameworks that are prescribed to you, both by FSCA, by other entities that you are dealing with. So the era of flying under the radar is swiftly coming to an end, and traders will have to adapt to these regulatory changes to safeguard their financial interest. From the FBI, we applaud these efforts. Everything is in place to keep our consumers safe. And what we have found is that in many cases, your more vulnerable clients might be caught in a trap if these things are not done correctly. So then my last comment, the 7th to the 11th October this year is Financial Planning Week that we will be having in South Africa. This coincides with the 9th of October being Global Financial Planning Day, and it is also coinciding with IOSCO's Investor Week. So FBI is asking all our members to get involved and help us raise the awareness of the value of financial planning during this week. There are various ways you can do this. You can host a financial literacy workshop. You can give pro bono advice. You can make a short video for us on something technical or something skills related. You can do a webinar. The list is endless. If you want to get involved, please contact us at mymoney123@fbi.co.za and let us know that you want to get involved, and we will assist you with some ideas. Thank you very much, everybody. And for those who had the foresight to put in leave for Monday, happy long weekend. Thank you, Francois.
Thank you very much, Nikki. Yeah, I don't know. Where do I put in leave? Like, I need to talk to I have a meeting with myself and submit something. Anyway, so thank you very, very much. Caught in a Trap made me thought of that song that starts off in that manner. Anyway, so next up we have Kobus, and Kobus is sharing today with us on the Advisor's Path some essential investment principles to remind and inform us about that.
Hello everyone. It's great to be here with you once again on Advisor Path. Today, I would like to go deeper into a few essential investment principles that are critical for us as advisors to ensure that we are always keeping our clients on the right investment pathway. These principles include diversification, the concept of spending time in the market, rand cost averaging, and a powerful mindset known as mind over money. Let's begin with diversification, a principle that stands as the foundation of any sound investment strategy. Now, many of our clients may be familiar with the saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And diversification is precisely that. It involves spreading risk across various asset classes, sectors, and geographical regions. By doing so, we reduce the chance that a poor performance in one area will drastically impact the overall portfolio. A properly diversified portfolio might include equities, bonds, property, and international assets. By balancing growth and stability, we help protect our clients from significant market fluctuations. This doesn't mean we're avoiding risk altogether. After all, risk is necessary for growth, but by diversifying, we're managing that risk more effectively. Next up, let's talk about one of the most misunderstood concepts in investing, spending time in the market, not timing the market. Many investors fall into the trap of thinking they can predict the highs and lows, moving in and out of the market at the perfect time. The reality is not even seasoned professionals can do this consistently. Time and time again, research shows that trying to time the market leads to poor outcomes. Missing just a few of the best performing days in the market can drastically reduce long-term returns. By keeping our clients invested through the ups and downs, we enable them to benefit from the power of compounding. Over the long run, it's about time in the market, allowing the investments to grow steadily rather than trying to make short-term predictions. As advisors, we need to reinforce this point on a regular basis, ensuring our clients stay focused on their long-term goals. This brings me to Rand cost averaging, a highly effective strategy for managing market volatility. The principle behind Rand cost averaging is straightforward. Rather than investing a lump sum all at once, the investor commits to buying in regularly, regardless of the market's current price. When the market is up, they buy fewer units. When the market is down, they buy more. Over time, this strategy smooths out the average cost per unit and minimizes the impact of market fluctuations. One of the greatest benefits of Rand cost average is that it helps take emotions out of the investment decision-making process. This is very useful in volatile times when clients may feel anxious about market movements. With this strategy, they're always buying in, whether the market is high or low, and they reap the rewards when the market recovers. It's a disciplined, measured approach that allows clients to ride out the volatility while continuing to build their investment portfolio over time. Now we come to a crucial aspect of investing that often gets overlooked: mind over money. We know that our clients' behavior can have a profound impact on their investment outcomes. It's not just about the numbers or the funds they choose. It's about how they react to market conditions. Fear and greed are two of the most powerful emotions in investing, and they often lead to poor decision making. When markets drop, clients may panic and sell out, locking in their losses that's actually paper losses before. When markets rise, they may become overconfident and chase performance, risking their capital. As advisors, our job is to protect them from these impulses. We need to be the voice of reason, guiding them through the emotional highs and lows in the market. By helping them understand that short-term volatility is part of the process and encouraging them to stick to their long-term strategy, we help them avoid costly mistakes. This is the power of mind over money, helping our clients understand their success isn't just about the market's performance, but also about their own behavior. In our role as advisors, we are the trusted stewards of our clients' financial futures. By adhering to these core principles, we help them navigate the ups and downs of the investment journey, ensuring they stay on the right path towards their goals. Thank you for joining me today on Advisor Path. Over to you, Francois. Have a great show.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you very much, Kobus. And with that, I've got a couple of quick announcements before we get into the conversation with Dr. Roddy Carter. Brilliant stuff. Right. First things first, you're probably looking for that hashtag so that you can win one of two books. So we are going to do the draw live at the end of the show. All you need to do is comment #brain this morning, and we will automatically enter you into the draw. The first draw will win a copy with a little message from me on the Financial Advisors Playbook, which we'll then send off to you. You can come and collect it at my office, and we can have a coffee if you'd like, or we will send it off to you, whatever works for you. So that's going to be the first draw. The first book goes to that winner. Then we're going to draw a second book, where the winner will have a choice between one of 4 books from Kobus, and Kobus will then will send your details through to Kobus, and he will be in touch, obviously, when he's back from his travels, to get you your book. So fantastic. So #brain, that is the hashtag that you need to put in the chat if you want to be entered into the draw. It sometimes happens that people WhatsApp me the hashtag. That doesn't help. You've got to do it here in the YouTube chat to be entered. All right. So next up, what's happening? So the Financial Advisors Playbook, this very book, the one behind me and this one in my hand, is now available on Takealot. So if you want to get it, it's a special introductory price. So if you want to get this, for those of you that don't know what this is about, so we had 14 professionals. So there they are, all here at the back. They came together and we wrote this book. In one day, the book was written, but that's not what it's about. What it's really about is what's possible when a group of ambitious people come together and they say, well, we want to do this and we want to do it for this reason. And we want to create something that's going to be evergreen and that's going to be an asset and something that's going to be part of the foundation of the profession that we are all participating in and building and all of that. And that has culminated in this book. There's really a lot in here, but it's practical. It's all people who are running businesses in practice, doing the work that you're doing. So there's some incredible insights in here. So do go and check it out. It's the Financial Advisor's Playbook. The link is also down below if you want to go and get it. It's on Takealot if you want the physical copy, and on Amazon if you want the digital copy. You can get it on Kindle. So you can download the Kindle app and all those kinds of things on any device, and you can read it anywhere. But for now, the book is only available from Takealot in physical form. If you want to also order for your team, so whether you want to order 1 or 20, if you want to order like 100 or more, you can get in touch with me. Then we'll do a special run for you and do things like that. But otherwise, you can order them from Takealot. Right. So that's the Financial Advisor's Playbook. Then also, we launched TaxSpace on the 3rd of September, the second version of it. So just a reminder to go and check that out. You can go to taxspace.app. You can find out more what this is about. And I also added the recording of the launch there yesterday so that you can go and see exactly what it is about. Because, often I think people get tools and implement technology, but they have no idea why. It looks cool. And the price is right. So let me do it. And then 3 months later, you decide, no, I'm not using the thing. And the reason why you're not using it is because you don't know what problem you're solving with that tool. So I go into great depth on those problems that we solve via the tool in your business. It's an amazing little tool. And we also, part of that mission with the tool is not only that, because also people think it's about tax. It's not. It's actually about business. And how do you acquire clients? How do you engage clients? How do you retain clients? How do you create new revenue streams? How do you enhance the planning that you're doing? And this little tool does all of that. But it's more than that, because we're also on a mission to create like this sort of Swiss Army knife of tools in there that's really useful. And the reason is I'm taking all of these pesky little Excel tools and building them into a proper application so that you can stop suckling with Excel and have something that's professional, that's correct, and that creates some great outputs for you from that as well. And that's useful. That's very important. So that's that for this morning. We're a little bit ahead of time because Kim is not here. So excited. It means I've got maybe a couple of more minutes with Dr. Roddy Carter. But on that note, if you haven't subscribed yet, thank you. We've really grown the subscribers quite significantly this last week or so. Really appreciate it. Please, if you haven't subscribed yet, do consider it. If you find value, please share the episodes that you like with other people. Hit the like button, so that little thumbs up on there. It's on the YouTube app, obviously, if you want to do that. You can even do it if you're watching on your TV. But let us know if you enjoyed it, if you get value. We really appreciate your feedback. And most of all, thank you very much for being here. Righty, so on that note, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Dr. Roddy Carter. Dr. Roddy, warm welcome to Propulsion Live.
Hi, Francois. How are you?
I'm fantastically well this morning. How are you doing? You're up in Johannesburg at the moment.
Yeah, I'm in Johannesburg, and it's not quite as blue and sunny and warm as it was yesterday.
It's quite depressing sometimes. The same thing happened when we had Humans Under Management. It was this fantastic weather. And then the very next day when I get up, it's like, what happened? It's like the complete opposite of what it was. But yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. So before we get started,
Francois, you said the wrong thing. It's not depressing. Depressing is a choice with the weather.
I like it. I like it. Yes, I do remember. So let me tell you a little bit more about Dr. Roddy. He's an executive performance coach. He's a neuroscientist. He's an author, and he's a phenomenal speaker. I had the privilege of hearing him this morning, and he's also a physician. And on his LinkedIn about section, he sort of leads off with this thing, this sentence that says, "I inspire ambitious senior executives to get ahead and stay ahead." But this is the part that really hit me. By unlocking the biology of success. I've never ever heard anyone say the biology of success. What do you mean with that, Dr. Roddy?
Francois, what a great question. We're designed to be successful. We don't realize that, and the design is fundamentally a biological design, right? And Mother Nature's been working on us for 400 million years. I don't think most of us can remember 40 years, never mind 400 years. That 400 million years is just inconceivably long. And Mother Nature has an iterative design process. Just like Apple goes, Apple version 1.0, 1.1, 1.7, 2.6. Mother Nature for 400 million years has been iterating us. So we are designed for success. And when we understand that, then we can unlock that success. When we play by the rules by which we're built, not surprisingly, we unlock success.
I love it. Sorry, I'm very much in awe with this whole discussion. You know, this is really my wife's area of interest, and I must say, like, you know, after listening, I've made so many notes on the day, just thinking about these things and sort of really being able to hear it in a way that makes sense to me, and that's not really the medical speak kind of stuff, you know. And I think often we feel like, I often hear people say, and I've said that before, I am who I am. I am the way I am. And it's almost like you feel like, you know, because of the way your brain is or your brain works, and that's it, right? So when you said you are not your brain, I went like that. You immediately got my attention. So can you explain just maybe a little bit more what do you mean by the fact that you are not your brain, and how does that relate to our behavior in general in life?
Yeah, Francois, that's a very good question. And to be honest, people sometimes say to me, Roddy, what's one lesson that if I took away, I would be able to get a giant step closer to success? I honestly think this is probably it. And for me, it's a starting point of the journey. As we're born, we come out so totally identified with our mother. We're, by perception, indifferent from that woman who carried us in uterus for 9 months. We're actually identified with our parent. And one of the first things we do as a human being is we have to de-identify. And we've all seen the little baby start looking at their fingers and say, whoa, that looks like me. It looks like I can move them. It's not my mother moving them, it's me. And so we form this sense of identity first with our body, and then we start noticing noise inside our head coming from our brain. And because it's coming from inside this body, we say, oh, that's me. And then we spend the lifetime believing that I am my brain. No. We're not our brain. Our brain is a magnificent, the most magnificent supercomputer imaginable, given to me for my success. It works for me when I choose. But the very first step is saying, I'm not my brain. And there's some interesting science, Francois. You know, in some ways, this might be considered a philosophical view. But from a scientific perspective, there are a few avenues which really confirm that. The first one we named the observer effect. And that's a simple fact, as I mentioned already, that you can hear your brain, you can hear your thoughts, you can hear your feelings, and you can hear your fears. That's what the brain produces. And so if somebody's listening, we are the observer, the listener, that means we're not our brain. Number one. Number two, neuroplasticity. You've probably heard about that. That's the ability of the brain to transform. It's a fantastic discovery. Honestly, I think the greatest scientific discovery of our era. And the concept is that the brain can transform, but I stay the same human being. And if my brain can transform independent of me, that means I'm not my brain. The third one, and I like this one a lot, is this concept of agency and free will, a concept that most ancient wisdoms and most religions deal with in quite a lot of depth. The concept is that we have choice. What does that mean? Our brain delivers a menu. Roddy, you can do this, you can do that, you can do the third thing. I get to choose. So I'm the chooser, I'm not my brain. And the final one is kind of esoteric. It's a little sad because there's some injuries that happen to patients sometimes, or diseases, where the left and right part of the brains actually separate. We call that split brain syndrome. And those poor patients get to see two virtual realities, if you like, almost like they're watching two screens. and they have a dual consciousness. And again, it's like seeing somebody sitting in a movie theater with two screens. They're the ones sitting in the seat. They're not the screen. So we're not our brains. The minute we know that, we're on the first step to success.
Yeah, it's still mind blowing.
It is.
There's also, I mean, it's actually, you know, sort of, if you think about it, it's mind blowing, right? If you now sort of connect like what we're talking about, it sort of have a little bit of a different meaning to me, and it's a little bit more real when I say that, because it feels like something's happening. And often we are also, you know, I think we're often a slave to our brains. Right, it feels like the brain is our master, and whatever we think, because like, I mean, if you think about like Walt Disney, if you can think, if you believe it, you know, and you think it, like you can do it and all that kind of stuff, and if you can think it and you can see it and like all those kinds of things, so it feels like we're in that position where we like, you know, yes brain, we sort of enslaved. So just maybe from your perspective, like, is that so? You know, how, are we enslaved, and how exactly are we enslaved to our brains? And is it necessarily a bad thing? Probably would be a follow-on question.
Yeah, no, what a beautiful question. And I'm sure that will resonate with everybody listening today. How we wake up in the morning and my brain says to me, oh, this feels like a bad day. And I play right into that. We just seem to respond to this brain's directions, orders, commands in a heartbeat. And a lot of the time, that's not a good consequence. But we go back to biology. Yes, we are appropriately enslaved to our brains. But there's going to be a catch in a little while, so hold for that. Why are we enslaved to our brains? It's very simple. I said to you, we've been iterated for 400 million years. That means we're born perfect. But actually, it's worse than that. We're born perfectly useless. Of all organisms, we human beings at birth are the most useless individuals. And I have a quick comparison. If you think to antelopes, we've all seen the videos of antelope that are born, drop onto the plains with predators hanging around. And that little tiny, tiny baby newborn runs away with its parents and escapes the hyenas that want to get hold of it. So we're, compared to those, absolutely useless. We have to raise human beings, some would argue, for 24 years, some would even argue 44 years. We have to go from uselessness to competence. And in order to do that, Mother Nature has given us this magnificent brain, preloaded with certain algorithms, and then this enormous capacity to soak in and learn things, all survival oriented. So until we have adequately survived into competent adulthood, it's absolutely biologically appropriate for us to be enslaved to our brains. In fact, I'd go so far to say if we don't enslave ourselves to our brain, we don't make it to adulthood. So for the first part of our life, yes. Now, the problem is most of us go the second half of our life enslaved as well, because nobody taught us that we're independent to our brain. Nobody taught us that it's a gift given to us for our success. So sadly, I guarantee there are a lot of people listening today who are incompetent adulthood and still say yes sir, no sir to their brains.
Yeah, because that was sort of my next question, is just around, you know, or just to follow up on that question, not my next question, but my follow-up question would be, you know, so that's how our brains are trying out to get us to adulthood. But then sometimes it feels like, okay, but then nothing changes after that. So you get to adulthood, but it's like nothing's changed. What is the reason? Is it just simply, as you said, because, you know, nobody taught us? I mean, who figured it out in the first instance then? You know, if nobody taught it to us, like how did we realize that, whoa, we are actually in control and it's not our brains? Although I think as humans, and I'm just making a blanket statement, that we often like to blame someone else. So let's blame the brain, blame the brain, right?
That's our next podcast. Blame the brain. I like
Yes.
that one. Yeah, no, Francois, that's a good question. I mean, who was the first one to do that? I don't know the answer to that. As a scientist, I guarantee you we're not taught that. But then I look at the world, and I look at the world of successful people and the way they live and behave and act, whether they were taught it or not. These people are acting the master of their own brain. I call it personal mastery, by the way, because I think it's accessible to every single one of us. But I think if we look at any of the world champions, people in any field that you like, the people who have stood out have said, this brain is there to serve me. And you can recognize the confidence, the presence, the perspective, the calm, the clarity that these world leaders have all achieved. And that's because they take advantage of their authority over this supercomputer.
Good stuff. So, but that also then further, if we then take it a step further and we start thinking about, okay, so I'm enslaved to my brain, but I have the power to do something about that. But then, if we start thinking, if we bring it back to what we do as financial advisors and planners and so on, and we help clients with creating wealth, but we also want to create wealth maybe for ourselves. Hopefully that's why we're here. But then, how do we, because that would basically mean that you need authority over your brain. Right. So you need to be in control. So can you share some practical ways that financial advisors and planners and their clients can take a bit more control over their thought processes?
Yeah, and probably I have to give a little bit of biology here. I'll try and limit it, not a whole PhD course. Very, very interesting, actually. We all have technology. I'm holding up my cell phone. We're all on computers. We're listening on some device, TV, whatever it is. And we know how to operate it. And we know because many of these have internal operating systems, which are either intuitive, or in the olden days, we used to get a manual, a book with instructions next to it, or an online manual today. And there are very specific designs inside this technology which enable the technology to operate internal operating systems. So too with the human brain. But I bet you that nobody taught you, Francois, that you have an operating system to your brain. I call it the brain operating system. And it's kind of cute because it comes out as boss. Sometimes I say brain operating system simple, then it has two S's and it's the real boss. When we understand that brain operating system, we're able to master the brain. And the brain, it's interesting from a financial advisor perspective. Kobus set this up perfectly because he was talking about emotion. The emotions of fear and greed, which interfere with cold, rational, smart, strategic investment advice. And I think for me, that's where the rubber hits the road with a financial advisor. And so what we see is that for some reason, fear interferes with cognition. And those are living in different places of the brain. Fear lives at the base of the brain. It's the earliest part of the brain. We sometimes call it the reptilian brain because we see it in reptiles, in snakes, in lizards, the cold-blooded, non-emotional, survival-based organisms, often dangerous because one of their responses of fear is to attack most frequently. On the other hand, we human beings and some of the advanced mammals, the great apes for sure, have a well-developed cognitive brain. We have thought and reason. None is advanced as human beings. And so these two are in conflict. And our emotional brain sits between those two. From an evolutionary perspective, it was developed after the reptilian brain of fear and before the cognitive brain of thought and reason. And it's called a flip-flopper. I call it a flip-flopper because it responds to the loudest noise in our head. And when the loudest noise is the voice of fear or greed, which is a different kind of fear, it triggers the emotions to flip negative. You'll know the phrase investor sentiment better than I do. Investor sentiment basically means when the emotions take over and make non-smart decisions, right? Investor sentiment, when it flips negative, driven by fear, sucks your clients, sucks your advisors away from a smart, rational strategy. On the other hand, when you're able to feed the cognitive brain, enrich, reinforce the cognitive brain, it dominates. And this beautiful emotional brain, the flip-flopper, goes north and now becomes very positive. And so you're able to maintain yourself on a solid strategy and you're able to maintain your clients. How you do that, there's a lot of different ways to do it. One of my favorites, actually, and I'm going to pick up again on a word Kobus said, he used the word appreciation. Of course, he used it in the context of finances and cumulative wealth, right? Actually, our work with our brain is cumulative as well. Our mastery over our brain is cumulative. So I love the word appreciation. Another word for appreciation is gratitude. And you can read every second blog is going to tell you about the value of gratitude. What I call it appreciation. Gratitude for me is very clear when it talks about yesterday and talks about today. Somehow the word appreciation goes beyond. Appreciate goes into tomorrow as well. So I like the prospective nature of that word appreciation. But here's the trick. When we appreciate or hold gratitude, that comes from a very deliberate, systematic thought base in our brain. And so if we practice gratitude or we practice appreciation, we are enriching our brain. And if I take a simple concept of money, if we're driven by fear and scarcity, we're going to have negative emotions. So we have 2/3 of our brain working against reason. On the other hand, if we're going to practice appreciation for the money that we have, now we get the emotional brain going positive, and we both have the thoughtful brain and the emotional brain driving positively in a direction that we want to go in. So that's quite a long answer, Francois, but a simple hack there.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. And I want to digress just a little bit from the conversation, because there's one thing that I picked up on that you said, and I want to ask you about that before we move on. But also, before I do that, Liana in the audience is asking, brain and or subconscious, what is the relationship?
Ah, that's beautiful. Our consciousness is our awareness, literally our awareness of what's happening in our brain. And I'm going to ask you a question right now, Francois, so I hope I don't embarrass you. You brushed your teeth this morning, right?
Luckily, I did.
Don't say no. Don't say no if you didn't.
Luckily, I did.
How many times? And I hope you don't have an electric toothbrush, because this doesn't work. How many times did you go left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right as you brushed your teeth?
I don't know, for 30 seconds. So I don't do the 2 minutes thing, but 30 seconds.
Some people sing the birthday song, whatever else. You don't know the answer to that. Why? Because this is something you do every day, sometimes twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day, right? And this beautiful brain says, here's something I do regularly and often. And my attention is so precious that anything I can do that I do regularly and often, I'm going to automate, and then I drop it down into my subconscious, which is just below the level of our consciousness, or our deep unconscious, where we're literally not aware of it. The other example, which is a little more scary, we've all driven home from work, and we know that there's 7 traffic lights between our office and our home, and we pull up to the garage at home and we say, oh, I hope those lights were all green, because I don't remember going through a single light. This automation, we drop from consciousness into subconsciousness and even unconsciousness, what we do routinely. Unfortunately, we think and work and operate with our clients and our money often routinely. And so a lot of these dangerous, fear-driven things are happening deep inside the bottom level of our brain that we're not actually attending to. So it's practice. And you know what I loved, so we had this beautiful conference, this Humans Under Management conference. What I loved about that group of people, what a special group of people, because you care so much about your clients. And so you're working with them now to help them concentrate on the way their own brain works. And the more they do that, the more they become aware, conscious of what their brain is doing, they're going to be able to access these subconscious habits and trends. And many of them are very dangerous, and we're not aware of them and don't watch them.
Yeah, thank you.
So great question.
Yeah, it is fantastic. Now, when I saw it, I was like, I definitely need to ask you that. And if anybody else has got some questions, please pop them in the chat. I'm happy to relay them to Dr. Carter. They possibly might be a lot better than my questions, so please do that. I just want to quickly pick up on, you mentioned something that I've never heard before, and that is that greed is another form of fear. Can you just maybe unpack that just a little bit before we move on?
Yeah, well, I'm going to ask you to picture a client of yours who's motivated and driven by greed. Help me understand what's behind that greed, because there's always something behind that. Yeah. You must have clients, Francois, motivated by greed. What's driving that greed?
Yeah, I've never thought about it that way. I mean, it could be around, either that it's a feeling of not being good enough, or not being, it might be the fear of not having status or something like that. It could be fear of not having enough. It could be fear of many things. Yeah, I've never thought about it that way.
Isn't that powerful, right? Essentially, greed is I take more than I need, right? And often we take more than we need, And there's a sensible rationale to this, right? And this is a narrow line that we have to walk. Because if we were out there primitive beings, we would be eating when there was food. When there was fruit on the tree, we'd eat it. And when there was game coming through our territories, we would eat the game. But we were very dependent on the movement of food and the good luck with climate and weather and things like that. As we evolved as human beings and got the gift of cognition, we could both remember the past, so we knew what happened when we ran out of food and it wasn't pretty, some of us died, and we got to plan. Those are the two gifts that this cortex gives us. And we started now accumulating food. And we started taking food, we put it in silos for bad days. And then we got to the point where we couldn't stop that. And if you think about what's driving that, if we're excessively accumulating, and I don't really like the word greed because it has judgment associated, and I don't have judgment. I'm not sure that I feel there's a moral injury if somebody's accumulating more than they really need, unless they're stealing it or taking it from others. But it's driven by this fear of running out. And I'm sure you've read the slogan, which is very interesting, actually, from a neuroscience perspective. And I forget who said it. What we resist persists. And the biological relevance of that is when we're focused on something we're resisting, like essentially starvation. We're stockpiling because we're afraid of starvation. Our brain is oriented around the starvation, which is an unhealthy negative force. And you'll say, Roddy, I can't get my client's attention away from his starvation concern to get him to think coolly and calmly and strategically about making this beautiful money grow. And that, for me, is one of the fears that manifests very often with probably with your clients.
Yeah, thank you very much. There's two more questions, but I'm going to first continue with our conversation. I definitely want to come back to those questions as well. There's some fantastic questions, so I'll get back to that shortly. So far, I just want to recap for everyone, what have we spoken about so far? So we've spoken about the fact that you are not your brain. We've spoken about the fact that we are appropriately enslaved to our brain, and that wealth requires authority over our brain. And also, you already mentioned about the fact that there's a simple operating system that governs our brain. So before I move on to the fact that the human mind is a complex mosaic, is there anything else you want to add in terms of the simple operating system?
If you don't mind, I'm going to tell a story. You see, I like stories, and I like the story because it just makes it so real for us. And I'm often aware that we sit as modern neuroscientists with an enormous amount of investigative technology behind us. And we think we're very smart in identifying these three regions, the brain, how they relate to each other, the wiring, the algorithms. But there's a beautiful story about a Native American village. And in the Native American village was an elder whose tent was right on the edge of the village. And one day a young girl comes up and says to him, Father, I would like to be the next wise person in this village. I would like to download all your knowledge. And he says, my child, that's fantastic. I'm delighted. I would love to give that to you. Come back tomorrow morning. It'll just take us a few minutes and then you'll be as wise as I am. And she looks with some disbelief, goes home, comes back the next morning. She didn't sleep because she was so excited. And she sits at his fireplace the next morning and she says, Father, please tell me. And he says, my child, inside each of us are two wolves. And they're fighting to the death. And then he just hesitates and pauses. And she looks with big eyes and she says, what happens? Which one wins? And he says to her, the one you feed. And the power in that story for me is that ancient people who were simply practitioners of life and watching how they operated, how their villages operated, realized inside of us are these two forces. For me, the cognitive brain and the reptilian brain that are fighting. The crazy thing we know today is they're fighting for possession of the emotional brain. And when cognition wins, we have positive emotion, and 2/3 of our brain take us forwards to success. And when we're not, when we feed the wolf, when we feed greed, when we feed hunger, then we end up with a negative reptilian brain winning, the emotional brain flips over, and 2/3 of our brain work against us. So that's just, I think, a very powerful story that many people find useful.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you very much for sharing that with us as well. Then, one of the things obviously is that, we need to make a lot of decisions, in the roles that we play, but also our clients, and we often need to facilitate those decisions. And I think a big part of the value that financial advisors and planners add is around helping clients make decisions and then also sticking to those decisions. Now, obviously, and you said this at the conference as well, is that the mind is a complex mosaic, or the brain, or the human mind. How does that complexity impact the decisions we make? Because I think often, I said to my wife the other day that, so what happened, let me share a little story with you very briefly. So what happened was we got to the office, and there was a couple of parking spaces. And then just something that I noticed, like I was going to park in the one, and then I decided, no, I'm going to park in the other one. And as I parked in the other one, another person came and parked in that one, and another person came and parked in the other one. And I think sometimes we have the illusion that we have choice, right? So I'm choosing that open parking space, but it's not really. It's just happens to be open, and that's the one I'm going into. So for me, like decision making, is it a thing we really do? Is it something that we have control over, or do we have the illusion of decision making, and sort of things work out the way that they should? So that's something that I wanted to ask.
Well, if we pursue that line, this conversation could get very deep, very fast. We go a long way from science, where we have facts. We get into speculation and philosophy, and I'm probably not a world expert in that. But let me go to this question of complexity and this mosaic. And I'm going to come back to your question of decisions and choices, because I think that's important for your clients. So I have two levels that I work with, two curricula, if you like, that I teach as I help people to understand how their brain works. And it actually came out of my own self-discovery. So I got to a place in my life where it wasn't a pretty moment, actually. I lost confidence. Having been a hugely successful young man and driving my career, just shooting up ladders, I suddenly got to a point where I completely lost confidence, and I couldn't explain it. Ultimately, I understand why. I didn't understand how to operate my operating system, my brain operating system. But I set out to understand and to conquer the fear and the indecision and the directionless that was accumulating inside of me. So I learned about this very simple brain operating system. Now, although I say it's simple, it's immensely powerful. And there's no real hard way to quantify this, but I think mastering my simple brain operating system got me 80% of the way to personal mastery. But that wasn't enough for me. You know that I'm ambitious, competitive, want the best out of myself. And so I realized that there's a complexity beyond that that is worth understanding as well. Now, let me get back to your decision. So you're sitting there, whatever it was, parking spots, choice on the menu, invest here or invest there, sell or buy. We're often at inflection points. And if you go to the complexity of the human mind, and if you listen very, very carefully, as you're at that inflection point or decision moment, you will hear that you are fragmented internally in your opinion. And if you start using with yourself and with your clients the word part, P-A-R-T, a part of me thinks I should do this. A part of me thinks I should do that. A part of me thinks that I shouldn't do anything at all. A part of me thinks I should give the decision to my financial advisor. And if you can go through a list of parts like that, and by the way, our parts have thoughts, feelings, and fears. So a part of me feels, a part of me feels, a part of me feels this, right? A part of me fears one thing, a part of me fears another thing. And if you and your clients can become highly attentive to this internal mosaic, actually, they're like sub-personalities. They're like a committee advising us, and they all have different opinions. Now, what happens a lot of the time is we become overwhelmed. I can hear in indecision, you lost your parking spot. Your crazy committee was giving you so many different recommendations that you sat paralyzed, and the guys stole the 2 parking spots away from you. Now, did you ultimately have choice of them? I don't know. That's philosophy again. but you were held up by the committee. Instead of being the chairman of the committee that says, oh, thank you, you think this, you think that, you think that, I'm going to make a quick decision and I'm going to grab that parking spot. You were entrapped, again, enslaved by the subcommittee inside your brain. So what do you do as an individual operating this complex brain or an advisor? You have to become deeply accustomed to identifying, listening to the parts. And I think if you can sit with your clients as you're recommending a strategy for investment and say, tell me what you're thinking about that. And you'll hear what they think, but don't stop at one thought and put the word part into their mouth. Actually say to them, a part of you thinks, finish my sentence, a part of you thinks. And what does the rest of you think? Or what does another part of you think? And if you're able to get that full kaleidoscope of thoughts and feelings and fears out on the table, now you and your client are going to be able to navigate your way through that with some conviction to settle on a strategy going forward. Does that make sense, Francois?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's fantastic. I think it's a good place for us to sort of maybe end off the day as we're headed to the end of our time together. Unfortunately, there's like, you don't know the amount of questions I had for Dr. Roddy, which I know I'm not able to ask. So you probably left hanging a little bit, wanting to know more. Before I just quickly ask you the two questions that the audience have posed, Dr. Roddy. So where can people find out more? Is the place they can connect? Do you have a YouTube channel? Do you have a podcast? Things like that people can maybe learn more?
I think the best is go to my website, roddycarter.com, RODDY Carter, CARTER.com. I've got a lot of resources there. People can reach out to me, send your questions to me there. I'm happy to see if I can answer them for you. There's such a broad field of books and literature. You'll see some recommendations there. I'm very happy to guide people to the right place, Francois.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Right. So just before we end, I want to ask you this. You've got 1 minute for each question. You don't have to take a minute, but a minute per question. So Bronwyn is asking, what do you think is the best tool or way to change a pattern or a pathway?
We have to work hard repetitively, and it's all about cognition. And if I go back to the concept of appreciation and gratitude, if we have a negative pattern working against us, there's always a positive alternative. Just like that wolf, if we feed the positive thought that is the alternative to what is a negative habit, we're going to empower that wolf to conquer the other wolf. I know that's more theoretical than practical, but I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's a starting point, right? So it's definitely, if people can just get set off on the right path, that I think that's very important. And then Neil asked, is there an optimal way to interrupt or break bad habits? I guess this is a question that every person is always asking.
Yeah, and breaking a bad habit is 1,000 tiny steps, but I think I'm going to advise one tiny step that you can repeat over and over again. One of the great gifts of this brain is our prefrontal cortex. It sits at the front of our brain. It differentiates us from all other living creatures, including the great apes. And it gives us awareness of our awareness. It means that we can sit in our prefrontal cortex, look back in our brain, and see us thinking, feeling, and fearing. And when we're sitting in that beautiful place, I call it the office of the CEO. We get an incredible command, authority over our brain. How do we get into our prefrontal cortex? It's very simple. If we can answer those 3 questions, what are we thinking, feeling, and fearing? We're automatically operating from the office of the CEO. So how do you break a habit? When you're trapped by that habit, if you're going to grab another donut out of the refrigerator, stop. What am I thinking, feeling, fearing? You're going to take yourself to the office of the CEO. And we all know, and I say this with a smile, CEOs make fewer mistakes than the rest of us.
Fantastic. Dr. Roddy, thank you so much. Please stick around. Watch us do the live draw, and then I'll say thanks to you afterwards when we're done. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Dr. Roddy Carter. Alrighty, fantastic. So Let's do the draw. It's quite, like there's 60 people online and only 19 of you have commented #brain. So meaning that most of you are not getting a chance to win one of the books. Either you're not interested in the books or, I don't know, you missed the hashtag. But anyway, so we're about to do the draw. And let's see, the first draw is for the Financial Advisors Playbook. And here we go. Right, so who's it going to be today? Let's see. Who will it be today? Boom. And we've got, Elna. Well done, Elna. I would say good luck. Congratulations is the correct English for that. Well done. I'll be in touch with you shortly. And then our next draw is for one of Kobus's 4 books. Here we go. Let's see who will win this book. And who will that be? And it is today, Johan Blumeres. There you go, Johan. Congratulations. Fantastic. I will be in touch with you shortly to give you all the details, or to ask for the details anyway, which will then go to Kobus, and Kobus will be in touch for your book. So congratulations, Elna and Johan. On that note, ladies and gents, after fantastic show. Thank you very much. Enjoy your weekend. We'll be back next week, same time, same place. Until then, stay safe, be blessed and prosper, and continue to raise the bar. Love you. Bye-bye.